my honor to introduce this morning Governor David A. Paterson. This is the third year in a row that the governor has come to Earth Day Lobby Day to speak to our group. And I think it's worth noting also on this 20th anniversary of Earth Day Lobby Day that Governor Paterson is actually the only governor who has ever accepted our invitation to speak at this important annual gathering of New York's environmental leaders and citizen activists. Many of you may remember that as Lieutenant Governor, David Paterson spoke to us in this very same room back in February 2008 for the Bottle Bill Lobby Day, which turned out to be just weeks before he became our governor. And he made a very famous Planet Albany speech, which we still quote to this day. The air is different in Albany. At Earth Day Lobby Day in 2008, then Governor Paterson pledged that he would work to get the Bigger, Better Bottle Bill passed into law, and last year he made good on that promise. A lot has changed since then. I think we can all agree that this has been an exceptionally difficult time for New York, particularly when it comes to the budget. This past year, the governor has made some unpopular decisions, and many of these decisions impact programs that we care deeply about, like the proposed cuts to the Environmental Protection Fund, and to critically important state agencies like the Department of Environmental Conservation and the Office of Parks and Recreation. Many of us also are concerned about the administration's support for hydrofracking in the Marcellus and Utica shale formations. Despite these differences, which the governor is amply aware of, we are pleased that the governor has come to speak to us today. Please welcome the Governor of New York State, David A. Paterson.
Times that I've come to these events, Laura has been kind enough to introduce me, so I just wish she could introduce me everywhere. I want to thank as well Beth Scott Odney, who is here for the Natural Conservancy, and all of you advocates who are here today, Rob Moore from Environmental Advocates, and Scott Mahar from Audubon of New York, and all of you who come tirelessly every year to try to protect our environment, which would seem to be almost a contradiction in terms, because most people are very protective of their homeland, and this is collectively our homeland. My colleagues in government, Comptroller Tom DiNapoli, who just spoke so beautifully and so ably, particularly on the issue of open spaces. There's a chapter in the book, After the Oil Crash, by Neil Savinar, which talks a lot about open spaces and planning, which would be one of the great energy reduction protocols that we could actually use. On my way in, I saw a strong supporter of the Environment, Senator Antoine Thompson, as he was exiting. Assemblyman Bob Sweeney is here, and I must say, our former Deputy Secretary of the Environment and now the United States Environmental Protection Agency's Regional Director, Judith Ink, is joining us. What is so wonderful about this current administration is that some of the pioneers, some of those who were in the forefront, and some of those who were considered to be very controversial by stands that they took 20 years ago, like protecting the atmosphere, that now they can actually serve in government and are not considered zealots, but are considered the best public policy people we have. And we have one of our own working in the federal government and with the White House today, and congratulations again, Judith. I want to just say that in my public and private life, this is one of the issues that is of the greatest concern to me, and I'm happy for the work that we've been able to accomplish in the last 2 years. But 2010 provides more challenges, and I think there's a lot more that we can accomplish. And it's been an honor working with you for 25 years in the legislature and in the executive branch. And this year, I think we've got to continue what are the responsible standards that we are setting for those who profit off of the development of our natural resources. We have to address the issue of electronic waste and make sure that we have electronic waste recycling programs in this state. And we have to continue to address climate change. Now, am I missing something? Is there no more such thing as climate change? As many who are antagonistic and antithetical to any environmental advocacy seem to allege, yes, Virginia, there is a climate change. We are really demonstrating a lot of strategic planning and efficiency right here in this state already, as we are recognizing that, that America has to rid itself of its addiction to oil. And what I think is so interesting about the fight about drilling, whether there should be offshore drilling or not, is since those who don't believe that the world is running out of oil, continue to hold to that belief, why do they want to drill offshore? Yeah. Just a point that they might want to consider in their deliberations sometime. The reality is that we are pumping half the oil that we were 35 years ago, and we would need to convert, even if you didn't believe in climate change, we would have to make that conversion, which is why we have set up 5 energy research centers right here in New York since last year, and why we're continuing our 45 by 15 program to convert 45% of our electric use to clean and renewable energy sources. Also, we started in the spring of last year, New York BEST, which is battery energy storage technology. We think that the plug-in hybrid electronic vehicles are the way of the future, and that the batteries powered by sodium, if they can be extended in their shelf life, that would be the real replacement to the carbon-burning traditional fuels that we use in automobiles today. We do have an interest in using all resources, and natural gas is one of them, although it must be understood that natural gas also has a curve of finite usage on this planet, and unlike oil, it's not a bell-shaped curve. When natural gas runs out in places, it runs out totally. So for us to be investing in any drilling of natural gas could only exist, and we have not made a final decision, if there is a finding that it's safe and does not affect our environment, particularly the water that we drink. I went to a sub-government environmental seminar given by Governor Schwarzenegger in October of last year, and it was concluded at that event that the issue of water usage and water protection will be as important in the next decade as healthcare, education, energy, any other subject that's being addressed on the global scene. Next to the atmosphere, it's the most important resource that we have, and that's why we're so happy that our DEC Commissioner, Pete Granis, who has always fought to have the highest standards in this country and the strictest enforcement, that he would continue to move in that direction. The issue of electronic waste is an issue that I was not particularly familiar with from a public policy level until a couple of years ago, but one that I always wondered about in terms of just day-to-day usage. When you throw out old televisions or electric razors, or these types of, or the antiquated ancient CD players that people used to use, that when they get thrown out, people don't wonder about what happens to them. They absolutely should. The toxicity of these metals and elements that these equipment are made in are poisoning our environment. We have legislation in right now to regulate that. I'd like to see the legislature pass it today, so we can all come back on Thursday and sign the legislation so we can What is clear is at this point here, as we celebrate the 20th anniversary of Earth Day Lobby Day and the